everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. And today it's very exciting. We have the star of Heartland is here again for another interview. We have Amber Marshall here. And Amber, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And I don't know if they told you, but the first time that you came on, I had never seen an episode of Heartland. It was obvious, I'm sure, but we were talking about the Love and Harmony Valley. And of course we talked about the show a little bit, but since you came on during the pandemic, my friend Michelle and we started covering the show and we're now at season 13.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You had some catching up to do and you did it.
We did. So yes, it's we're nearing the finish line. We can feel it.
Yes.
It's very exciting.
And so I have a question for you because I know a lot of fans have done exactly what you did, hadn't seen the show at all. And then COVID hit and they watched all 15 seasons within 2 months or 3 months or 4 months. And I always think, wow, that's quite the experience, because for us, it's taken 16 years for us to film these seasons. So each year, and I'm sure you notice it when you watch it all together, but we grow and age and all the stories kind of are taking place over that 15-year span. But when you watch it all within a year, do you really notice us growing up and aging and that kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I mean, especially for someone like you or Georgie or Mallory, you know, where they started young, the characters, and then we've seen them literally grow up. And so, you know, that's been very fun. And we were just talking about the other day, we're like, we've spent a decade with these people.
It's true. Yeah. And I mean, I don't really go back and watch previous episodes and things like that. But when I see videos that fans have put together or like little snippets from season 1 and season 2, that's all I can think of is we were so young. And it's really cool to be able, it's almost like this yearbook each year in our lives that's just put out there, and it's kind of cool. It's a neat experience to be able to go back and see each different year of your life for the last 15 years.
Sure. So I asked Michelle this, but I'm curious, since you played Amy for so long, do you ever dream as Amy?
Well, you see, Amy and Amber are very similar. So I feel like I'm always dreaming in Amy because we're just one and the same. I think it would be different if I was playing a character that was very different from me. Let's say I was, on a foreign planet and I was walking around in space boots. Then I might be dreaming that I'm walking around in space boots and things like that. But when I dream, I'm basically one of the same. Amy Fleming and Amber Marshall are the same person.
Well, Michelle said no, so.
Okay.
But do you have a favorite season of the show?
Oh my goodness. I don't know about favorite season. I've had favorite moments that really stick out. And I think for me, and this is going to come as no surprise, but I love all of the horse work on the show. That's just something that's very rewarding to me. I've been a horse crazy girl ever since I was little. And so this show is really a dream job for me, and it continues to be. But every time I get to learn a new skill with horses, or even have a new horse character that comes on the show that I really connect with, like I actually connect with the horse itself, it's very rewarding. And
I was going to ask you about that, because one thing we've really been curious about is when they have the horses, and the horse work in general is just amazing on the show. But if they need the horse to be kind of angry or wild or sick, that kind of thing, like how do they do that without obviously making the horse angry and sick and, whatever? How did they do that?
We have a very talented team of horse trainers. So the thing is each horse character is not necessarily played by one horse. There's usually multiple horses.
Right.
So let's say the character of Spartan, who has been with the show since as long as I have, from the very beginning. And the main horse that we use, his name is Stormy, and he has been there all 16 years with me, which is really cool because he was only just turned 5, or he was 4.5, which is very young for a horse to be on a movie set, because usually
Mhm.
they're still a colt when they're
Sure.
4, and they're like, looking at the world and learning things. And so that was very young for him to start, but he was just such an even-tempered, bomb-proof, nice young horse. So he's now 20, and he's been with the show for almost his whole life. And
Yeah.
but for the character of Spartan, we have used many, many different horses over the years, because so Stormy, who plays that role, he's a great horse, and he's very happy just to hang out quietly on set. And he's the horse I usually ride and things like that. But if we need him to look sick or injured or scared, then we bring in trained Liberty horses. So a
Oh,
Liberty
okay.
horse, for those people who aren't familiar with that, is a horse that's trained almost like a dog to do specific commands and things on cue. So if Spartan's supposed to be afraid and aggressive, we have a horse that comes in that looks just like Spartan. He'd be his double, and he's trained to rear up or strike out or kick or do something on cue. And so if we needed a horse to look angry, we would bring in that Liberty horse. We also have horses that are trained to lay down and lay flat and look like they're sick or injured, and just lay calmly and quietly. And we also have horses, and it's a very specific skill, but it's a falling horse. They're trained to actually be upright and trotting or walking, and then just flop over into the sand.
Mhm.
And so you mentioned Mallory earlier, and we did have to use a falling horse for when Mallory starts jumping Spartan, and he actually falls over in the scene itself. But the only falling horse that was trained to do that they could find was a sorrel color. So he was like a chestnut, a reddish color. So that horse was completely painted head to toe to match Spartan
Wow.
for that scene. So there's a lot of stuff that goes behind the scenes that
Yeah.
we don't necessarily think about when you're watching the show. In fact, I hope you don't think about it, because if you're watching the show and you're like, oh, that horse is really red and it looks like it was painted black to be Spartan,
Right.
then we've lost you, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to work. So each and every step we take to make the show as real as we can is so that when you're watching the show, you don't even think about these things.
Mhm.
You shouldn't think about these things. But that would be how they did all these different, because the horses are essentially acting, right?
Yeah.
If a horse is supposed to be aggressive and there's a trainer cueing that horse to rear or strike out at a person, that's acting. That horse isn't
Mhm.
actually being mean. He's not.
Right.
In fact, those horses are the kindest, nicest horses to be around, because they're so well trained.
Mhm.
So we're very lucky that we have been able to have access to so many incredible horse trainers and horses themselves over the 16
Mhm.
seasons we've been going.
With the wild herd, are those actually like trained horses that are acting wild? Okay.
Yes.
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
So all the horses that you see on the show, whether they're depicted as wild or crazy or not, they're all very quiet and calm, halter broke, fully broke to ride, quiet horses. And so then they just decide, okay, so for this horse herd, what do we want it to look like? Do you want to have, a gray horse and a paint horse and a this and a that? And they kind of put it together. And then they all show up in a trailer and with halters on, and they lead them out to exactly the position where we want them to be, because we have to set things up so that it works for the camera and the crew and the scenery and all that. And they'll set up the horses, they'll take all the halters off. Sometimes we'll even put little invisible fence around them so that we can keep them in a specific area, so that when we're panning over the mountains and coming down to the horses, they're exactly where they should be. So there is a lot that goes into it behind the scenes, I guess, to create that realism and that magic.
We love getting the chance to talk to you, Amber, but we just want to remind all of the Heartland fans out there that you want to watch season 15 of Heartland on UPtv Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, and stream seasons 1 through 15 of Heartland on Up Faith and Family. Up is the destination in the US for season 15 of Heartland, as well as over 100 exclusive bonus behind the scenes cast and crew interview videos. So make sure that you check that out. And we're so grateful for UPtv and their support of the podcast. So let's get back to talking to Amber. So how are the different scenes coordinated when you have the different kind of, I guess, horsemanship, whether it's the rodeo scenes or the riding scenes or jumping trick when Alicia does the trick riding? Obviously, you have some stunt doubles. How does that all come together?
So there is 3 weeks of pre-production is what we call it before we go to film each block. So I'll break this down. So we film 2 episodes at a time. So if you're watching the show, we would be filming 1 and 2 at the same time, then 3 and 4 at the same time, 4 and 5 at the same time. So what that means is we don't go in order. We take scripts 1 and 2 and put them together like they're a 2-hour movie. And then we take all the scenes out of them that happen in the kitchen and do all those together. Then all the scenes that happen at the rodeo grounds out of those 2 episodes and do them together. And we shoot that. Each block is 3 weeks long. So as we're filming those 2 episodes over the 3 weeks, simultaneously to all this behind the scenes, there's a whole nother crew that's prepping the next 2 episodes, the next block. So for the 3 weeks that we're filming episodes 1 and 2, they're blocking out and prepping episodes 3 and 4. So how it kind of happens when we have different horse action scenes like the rodeo or whatever, they will completely prep that out before we get there. So they will know exactly how many horses they need, how many stunt doubles, what the setup is, because we have a whole art department and set decoration crew that goes into those locations before we get there, days and weeks before, to make sure they're set up to look exactly how we want for the show. So if we go into, say, the Millerville Fairgrounds, we don't want it to say the Millerville Fairgrounds because our show takes place in the town of Hudson. Right. So our art department will go in and measure out every sign that says Millerville, anything like that, and make banners and new signs to replace it all. So that all goes in a week before or a day before, depending on what the timing's like. And they will set it all up. So now all of a sudden it's no longer the Millerville Rodeo Grounds, it's the Hudson Rodeo Grounds. And we have specific signage for each location that we film at. And every time there's a new location, something gets made up and it gets slotted in this huge warehouse of just different things that we have from over the years in different locations. And so then we show up on set that day, everything's ready. It's all been blocked out ahead of time. So we know exactly what part of the arena we're starting in and what's happening there and what stunt doubles we need, what horses we need, all of the action, everything's already been decided. So when we show up, it's like, okay, scene number 1, we're doing this in this corner of the pen. Scene number 2, we're doing this over in these pens. And so it makes it run so smoothly.
Mm-hmm. That's really, really interesting. Yeah, we just covered the tornado episode, and that was one of our favorites. I thought that was really, really well done, that episode.
Well, thank you. That was a fun episode to do, because there's always, and I was saying this in an interview previously, that 16 years is a lot of stories to tell. And as you've seen, probably in a shorter period of time, there is a lot of different episodes with completely different storylines. And to think of new things every year, like I admire our writing team so much, because they can go in there and take, whether it's, we have 18 episodes or 10 episodes, whatever it might be, and they arc that season and have something fresh and new and still have those family moments that everybody knows and loves and can relate to. And there's something for everyone. It doesn't matter if you're 5 years old or 95 years old. There's a story in there that probably resonates with you. Mm-hmm. And I think that has been really part of the success of the show, is the fact that kids can sit with their grandparents and their parents and whoever in between and know that it's just nice, wholesome family watching. Mm-hmm. And there is a story for everybody.
One thing I've really appreciated is that they don't go the machismo cowboy kind of route that they could. Like all the men on the show, with exception maybe some moments from Tim, all of the men on the show, watch Lindy. They're involved with the family. They're not like these like tough guy kind of roles. I just really appreciate that.
Yeah, and they have that there. Like there's that nice balance of, okay, we got to go fix fence and we're going to ride a bronc and we're going to have the rodeo school. But yes, of course, I will look after the 2-year-old, 3-year-old, like it's like hands down. And you see those sweet, caring, genuine moments, which I think is really important. And we always have the words of wisdom from Grandpa. And we have just those, I think like everyone who watches the show always wishes that they had a grandpa like Jack, or, you know, or there's just those characters that are so relatable, or maybe they do have a grandpa like Jack. And it's just, I think that having that family dynamic that sits down every night to have dinner together is something that's kind of getting lost a little bit in today's society. Everybody's so they're just in a rush. There's way too many devices in the house. People are watching things in different rooms. And so that's one thing I love about Heartland is it brings back that Sunday night family dinner and a show. Yeah. And I think that is so important, especially in today's society when people have kind of lost touch with that. And to see that family and say, you know what? Yeah, this is important. Family is very important, and spending time together, not just all on different devices and different rooms and things like that. Just being able to sit down and have a nice dinner together and talk about your day and things like that is it's a little bit lost in today's society.
So you said that you and Amy are very similar. What would you say is the biggest difference between you and Amy?
I think that Amy's a little bit more dramatic maybe than myself, because she has to be, because it's television. And that's what I always say is if there's not drama, then it's boring. There needs to be something. Right. And I think we're very similar in a lot of our core values, I would say, are very similar. Amy is a little bit more horse obsessed than I am. I'm very animal obsessed. Like on my farm, I love my chickens and my dogs and my cats just as much as I love my horses. So, but Amy's got these blinders on for horses. She's like, it's horses or nothing. And for me, like, I go out and spend just as much time giving my cows neck scratches and pets than I do with my horses. So I like that balance of just general farm life or ranch life. But really, when you get down to it, I would say that myself and my character are very similar.
So I think that Remy on the show is your dog. Is that correct?
She is. Yeah.
Oh, cute. That must be fun.
Yeah. It has been. It's been really, it's kind of that proud moment where you get, like, when I do watch the show and I see her doing a good job, I'm like, oh, that's my kid. Like, it's awesome. And I also have my little pony, Talon. He played Monty on the show. So you would have seen Monty if you're caught up, but that was fun too, because it's sort of that idea of your life merging into your work. And that's always been really fun for me.
Yeah. So we have season 15 ending the week this airs. It'll be ending on UpTV. So do you have a favorite memory of season 15?
Season 15. It's funny because
whenever I get
asked about when I get asked about specific seasons or moments, I'm like, did that happen in 14 or 15? I think the thing I loved about 15, and I don't know if I want to spoil this for you if you're not totally caught up, right. But season 14 was very depressing, I have to say. There's an event that happens, which I'm sure you're aware of, that just shattered the Heartland family. And it kind of tore us up a little bit too, because this is a character that's been with all of us for 14 years, 13 years. And so I just remember and season 14 was also the first year that COVID presented itself, and that we were under very strict guidelines and restrictions that we had to do to complete the show. So it was this kind of a very strange vibe in 14. It went really well with what was happening on screen. I have to say, if timing could have worked out any better, I don't know where, because it was just this darkness that was put on the season. And at the same time, we were all trying to learn how to work under COVID restrictions and things like that. So it was this kind of strange balance that was happening, but it worked really well for the story, because all of us were like, what's going on? But that's what was happening with our characters. And then 15, I felt just a sigh of relief, because it was like, okay, so we've done that season. It's done. Let's start moving forward. Let's start bringing that light back. Because I think that's what people really like about the show, is that they can sit down and they can watch it and just feel contentment, feel satisfied, feel like, oh, you know what? That made me feel really good. And so 15, I felt like we were getting the train back rolling onto that path. And then 16, which we're now just filming, has been just so much fun. It's been one of those, it's like, okay, so now we're 2 years out of the darkness, and now all the characters are really starting to just find themselves again.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of fun, and it's also been really beautiful weather, and it feels like it's kind of back to that Heartland that I think we all know and love.
Welcome to the Pilot Podcast. My name is BJ.
And my name is Me Too, and we promise this promo is worth it, so please don't skip ahead.
We're two judgy friends who put our judgmental skills to work for you. We review the pilot episodes of new and popular shows, and shows that our listeners request to answer your question, should I watch this?
Look, a lot of us are spending a lot more time at home, and yes, we should be reading and trying new projects and enriching ourselves, but does anything beat binging a great show?
Let us take the guesswork out of deciding what your next show will be. Tune in to The Pilot Podcast at thepilotpodcast.com.
Yeah, it was kind of funny because there were a lot of people that were upset about When Calls the Heart, that a member of the cast left, and they were all like, well, we're going to go watch Heartland instead. And I'm like, it's just wait.
Oops.
Sorry. But do you have a memorable guest star that you'd like to see come back?
Oh, that's a good one. Can I bring up horses? I actually really enjoyed the story with there was a Gypsy Vanner horse, which is like a big fluffy, almost a
Ophelia
type horse. Yes, exactly.
We just covered that.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
And I think it's really cool to have different types of horses too, because we show the majority of horses we use on the show are quarter horses. They're amazing. They have worked out so well for us, but every once in a while it's really cool to be able to see just a totally different breed. We're like, oh, that's really neat. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
And so that's what I would like to see, not necessarily Ophelia, but just some more unique guest star horses, I think would be really cool.
Yeah. That was a perfect Amy answer, I think.
Not bad. Oh man,
No,
we are the same.
It's good.
But I also would like to see some of the characters. I love that we do kind of pay that respect to previous characters coming back. So if you watched Mallory grow up and then Mallory left, and then we get to see her and Jake return,
that was fun. Which
is really cool because these actors, they grow up off screen, and then when you don't see them for so many years and all of a sudden they come back, you're like, you're an adult now, you're all grown up. And so we do get to see a couple characters coming back this season. So season 16 is what we're filming right now, that haven't been there for a while.
Yeah.
That fans will know and love. So
like,
that's
I think
really
it would
cool.
be fun to have Ashley back for a couple episodes.
And I love Cindy Busby, who plays Ashley. Incredible human. And just we have so much fun together. So it's hard on a show, especially with the longevity of Heartland, where you have people that you become so close with and they become really good friends, and then they're not on the show anymore and you don't see them as much, because being an actor is very different than a job where you're working local, like you're not just going down the street to go to your office. Most of these people are flying in from Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, LA, wherever it might be. So when they're not on set, it's not like you can just be like, hey, let's go out for coffee. Like, I'll meet you. It doesn't work like that, because you're usually just saying, hey, where in the world are you now? And what are you doing? And we still keep in touch. I keep in touch with a lot of the actors, but it might just be a text message every once in a while, like, hey, thinking about you. How are you? It's not the same. So when these actors get to come back on the show, it's kind of like this fun reunion for all of us. And there's a lot of people that work on the show. Like it's not just this core cast that all of a sudden is happy to see these people back, but our crew, there's like 75 to 80 people on set every day. And we all have this kind of mutual love and respect for one another. So when somebody leaves, they're missed by everybody. And then when they get to come back, it's like, oh, it's kind of like a party, a little reunion. And it's really cool. So to answer your question in that big roundabout answer, I think any of the characters that have had greater storylines that have been a part of Heartland, And even if they haven't been in for several seasons, I think that not only do the fans love seeing those characters return because they've been invested in those characters, but all of us really enjoy that. And we have that friendship and that connection already. So you can see that on screen. When those people return, you feel that general like mutual respect and love of one another. And I think that that's really cool to be able to portray that as well.
Yeah. So was it fun getting to play pregnant for the season you were?
I wouldn't say fun because it was very hot.
Yeah.
And I wore a very thick prosthetic, like silicone suit. Yeah. Fun would not be a word I would use. But
challenging.
Yeah. And actually it was really great because it was one of those things where like I had to play morning sickness and stuff that I'd never experienced. So it was things that I'd talk to Michelle or I would talk to different people on set and be like, so like, what does this mean? Like, what is a Braxton Hicks contraction? What is like all of these different things that, because on the show, I usually am pretty trained at any of the horse stories and things that I've sort of done them before. Right. So I kind of know, okay, I would play it like this, or this horse would react like this. So things like playing blind or doing things that are totally outside of my comfort zone are like, okay, so now I have to go and talk with people that have these experiences so that I can make it as real as I can.
Yeah. I was so impressed with the Spencer twins that, I mean, they really felt like, I mean, Lindy really feels like your daughter to me on the show. They did a great job.
And we are so lucky to have those girls. And
they're so cute.
And it's a strange thing because they were cast in that role when they were like 5 months old.
Yeah.
So how do you know that 5-month-old twins are going to just embrace this world as much as they did? We had no idea. Yeah. And just every year that they've been on the show, and this year especially, like they're now almost 6 years old. And just every time I'm in a scene with either one of them, I'm just blown away. Yeah. I just go, you guys are just little adults. And they've grown up on the show. They really have. I mean, they were 5 months old when they started. And the fact that I have such a connection with them off screen, I think makes that family dynamic so much more real on screen. And when they get to come out to my farm and ride my horses and just hang out for the day, it's such a special thing for me because I love those girls so much. Yeah. And I also feel like it adds to those stories because we have that connection off screen and we have those memories that are built off screen. So when I'm in a scene with them, I can actually say, oh, this is just like, remember when, you rode my horse Hawk and he started to trot and you went, ah, and like we have those connections that I can relate and call on so that when we're in a scene, I can make it more real. And that's really what it's all about, especially with kids and animals, because they're not necessarily acting. They're just living off real life moments. And so for me, it's finding those real life moments that I can bring into the scene and say, remember when this happened? Well, this is exactly what we're doing right now. And then they're like, oh yeah, okay. Because they can call on that experience and they can say, oh yeah, I remember what that was like. And so that's been really rewarding for me, is to be able to kind of take them under my wing. And they're little lights. Those girls are just so special. And
well, I think you can feel that chemistry that time spent together. You can feel the chemistry on the show. Well, last question. I was just curious because I know some of your co-stars like Chris Potter and Megan Falls have directed episodes and written episodes of the show. Is that ever something you've thought about doing?
I love the idea of it, and it would be quite the challenge. But for me, I'm in almost every scene. Yeah. So what I talked about before, when the whole prep, the 3 weeks of prep would be really difficult, because usually when Chris Potter's directing or Megan Falls is directing, they're not in the 2 episodes leading up to the episodes that they're directing. Or if they're in it very minimally. So they can still attend all those meetings, because every single day while we're on set filming, there's meetings going on in the pre-production world for the next 2 episodes. So it would be a real challenge for me to be able to be on set acting and be in meetings. And I just think that I wouldn't be able to do either job well enough that I would feel like I've succeeded at both.
Yeah.
And so to answer your question, directing is something that I might be interested in the future, but I just love what I'm doing right now. And I really want to tackle it and do it the best I can and not be in two places at once, so to speak. So
well, that makes total sense. Well, real quick before you go, we have some just fun, silly little questions that we like to ask. So first question, what is the best ice cream flavor?
Anything chocolate with like chunks or cookie dough or like I'm a chocolate girl.
Sounds good. What's your favorite color?
Purple and like a teal mixed together.
Oh, okay, good. What music are you into?
I like a little bit of everything. It totally depends on my mood. I would say that I mostly listen to country and I listen to the radio a lot. I just like the local stations and because then I can kind of hear what's going on and listen to music. So it totally depends on my mood.
Cool. What is your go-to date night food?
Oh man. I just went out not long ago. My husband and I had a really nice evening out and we both had a great steak dinner. So
nice.
That's probably.
Dogs or cats?
Oh, dogs, but cats are a close second.
Okay, good. Beaches or mountains?
Mountains.
Okay. What's your favorite holiday to celebrate?
Christmas.
Yeah, it's tough to beat Christmas because it's like a whole season.
I'm such a decorator. Like I love Christmas time. I'm the one I got to get the lights up all around the house. I have to have everything up like end of November. If it's not up, I'm like, okay, let's go.
Well, thank you very much for coming on again. We really, really appreciate it. And I've had such a great time with my co-host Michelle that does Talking Heartland with me. We've had such a great time together and she wishes she could be here. But it's been a great, I find myself every once in a while looking at a horse and on a show or whatever and being like, that looks like a bronc instead of then I'm thinking, what is happening to me? Like, how did I become this person? So I thank Heartland for that. It's been really good. And so if people want to follow you on social media, how can they do that?
Instagram is where I'm most prevalent, and that's Amber_Marshall_farm. Because of course Amber Marshall was taken and it just fits in with the whole world. And that's where I spend most of my time. So
great. Yeah. Well, we'll put a link down to that. And then we'll also have a link for the Up Faith Family. If people want to watch the show, get caught up, and we'll be excited for season 16.
Awesome.
I'd like to thank Amber for coming on the podcast. This was really so much fun to get to talk with her. I hope y'all enjoyed the interview. And I'll put a link down to our first interview if you haven't gotten a chance to listen to that. And make sure you're following the podcast, Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast, all of our social media. And if you're listening on iTunes, please leave us your ratings and reviews, 5 stars. It would help us a lot. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. We also have our Patreon group and merch store, which has Heartland inspired merch. So check that out. And thanks again to Amber, and we'll talk to y'all later. Bye, everyone.